Yuri, the show's already started.
Motherland. Above all, go ahead.
From incredible future technologies, we shift to incredible past technologies. Today, we'll discuss insane Russian military tech.
Not Russian, but Soviet.
For nearly 70 years, the Soviet Union was a superpower with unmatched mechanical might, well, except for the USA, of course. The USSR built experimental projects to prove its might to the world, and some systems from that era were stunning, though not always in a good way. From winged fortresses and atomic torpedoes to flying saucers, Soviet designs were sometimes just wild. Buckle up and get ready, because we're diving into some of the most incredible and jaw-dropping Soviet systems.
Time to rock and roll.
In the 20th century, the world was unstable and countries churned out hundreds of new weapons prototypes. One of the most mysterious directions was underground boats, capable of moving beneath the earth.
This is interesting, go on.
The idea first emerged in 1904, when inventor Pyotr Raskazov published an article about a self-propelled capsule that could dig tunnels. Soon, his blueprints ended up in Germany, and Raskazov himself was shot dead. In the 1930s, the USSR and Germany launched secret projects. Soviet engineer Trebelev built the first submarine, a machine that burrowed underground like a mole. But the project was shut down and the engineer was executed.
As Comrade Stalin said, every problem has a first name and a last name.
In Germany, engineer von Wern designed an amphibious vehicle that could move underwater and underground. The plan was for these boats to pass under the English Channel and suddenly attack Britain. The project was cancelled, but the idea never vanished.
Hit me with it.
After World War II, the blueprints reached the USSR. In 1964, the first Soviet underground boat with a nuclear reactor, the Battle Mole, emerged. It had a titanium hull, could carry people and cargo, and was designed for covert operations on US soil. The bold plan: deliver boats to enemy shores, drill tunnels, plant nuclear charges under strategic sites, and trigger artificial earthquakes and tsunamis disguised as natural disasters. The first test succeeded, but the second saw a reactor explosion, destroying the boat and crew. The project was scrapped. Whether such developments continue today is unknown, but given the current situation, this possibility cannot be ruled out.
Yeah, this possibility cannot be ruled out. Comrade Vladimir? Yes, I have an idea. Так точно. Служу Отечеству.
2B1AK. In the Soviet Union, bigger was always better, and this principle shone through in the 2B1AK. This, let's say, heavily armed beast was a self-propelled mortar developed in 1957 as the Cold War heated up. America had just unveiled its Atomic Annie, a cannon firing 280mm nuclear shells, essentially small nuclear bombs. In response, Soviet scientists created two self-propelled nuclear artillery systems, one being the Wild 2B1AK. Its barrel stretched 20 meters long, compare that to a Sherman tank's 6 meters. This massive gun fired 420mm shells weighing 748 kilograms, with a range of 45 kilometers. But the giant 2B1AK was also a giant problem. Its shells, heavier than a grand piano, made reloading a nightmare, allowing only one shot every 5 minutes. The recoil was so intense it damaged the steel chassis with each shot, even ripping the transmission from its mounts. The project was shelved in the 1960s as large missiles took over. Though never used in combat, the sheer sight of this beast could have terrified any Soviet enemy.
You don't understand the thing. It's symbolism. The one with the bigger gun is cooler. That's the law of life.
1K17 compression. Sci-fi films suggest future battlefields will be filled with lasers. While modern armies develop laser tech, one Soviet machine was already battle-ready. The 1K17 compression, aka the Soviet laser tank. Built in 1990, it wasn't for burning holes through enemies. 13 lasers mounted on a tank chassis focused intense light through 30 kg synthetic rubies. When fired in pulses, compression could destroy optical sensors on vehicles and missiles, or even blind enemy troops.
Now this what I call laser tech Soviet style.
The weapon never entered service for solid reasons. First, the rubies, heavier than a microwave, were costly to produce. Second, using blinding laser weapons against humans violated the Geneva Convention protocol. If the USSR had deployed it, they'd have made more enemies.
You are still green. No one played games with the Soviet Union.
Next up, Project Zveno. In the 1930s, just over a decade after World War I, Soviet Russia realized the sky would be the future battlefield. So they developed an experimental aircraft in case World War II broke out.
Spoiler, it has begun.
Russia had aircraft, but one plane resembled a flying circus more than a military machine.
Show some respect, Soviet tech is legendary. Period.
Project Zveno was highly ambitious, modifying a bomber to carry fighters instead of bombs. This aimed to save fuel, as bombers consumed less than fingers. After takeoff, fighters docked with the carrier mid-flight using special attachments.
Yeah, it's like a mothership in Alien Vessel. I adore Soviet tech.
When docked, the bomber carried and refueled the fighters en route to battle. Each carrier could hold up to 5 fighters, each armed with 454-kilogram bombs. If this thing appeared on the horizon, it meant big trouble. Project Zveno was successfully used early in World War II, but saw no further development. During the wartime tag bomb, carrier planes quickly became obsolete, replaced by modern fighters. Designer Antonov abandoned the concept but kept creating wild aircraft. Don't believe me? Check out the incredible Antonov A-40 project. Is it a bird? A plane? No, it's a tank with wings. This Soviet prototype, built nearly 80 years ago, tested whether tanks could fly directly to the battlefield. Back then, the USSR was experimenting with planes dropping tanks mid-battle. Some tests even involved dropping them into water to check durability. In 1942, glider designed Oleg Antonov took it further. He created a detachable biplane wing frame with a double tail attachable to a light tank chassis. A bomber towed the A-40 released it over enemy territory, where it shed its wings and operated as a standard tank.
I wonder where the crews for this tank trained at. A tank school or a flight school?
Maybe at a circus school? During the A-40's first flight, the tank proved utterly unaerodynamic, forcing the bomber to release it early due to wind resistance. It was more anchor than cargo. Though the tank and driver survived the fall, the project wasn't so lucky. It was scrapped for more conventional weapons.
And now let's talk about serious things. I think this will impress you.
Yeah, Yuri. In the height of the Cold War, the Soviet Union created one of history's strangest and scariest military systems, the perimeter, or as it's also known, the dead hand system. Its principle is simple but foolproof. If the country's top command is wiped out by a nuclear strike, perimeter automatically orders the launch of all surviving Soviet missiles. In other words, even if the nation dies, it still gets its revenge. The system links to a network of sensors and missile launchers. It analyzes radar signals, seismic readings, and radio comms from command posts. If it detects mass destruction of leadership or total comms blackout, perimeter decides on its own to launch a counterstrike, no human needed. This idea comes straight from Cold War strategy. A nation must ensure it can say after everyone's dead. And that's where the real horror kicks in. Like Soviet forces are ready to fight and avenge the motherland, even from the grave.
Revenge from the beyond the grave. How beautifully Savage. Proud to be Soviet.
The following development belongs to the Russian Federation as the successor of the Soviet Union. Poseidon, Russia's giant autonomous nuclear torpedo with a nuclear engine. Poseidon is Russia's strategic underwater weapon, a giant autonomous torpedo with a nuclear warhead capable of striking coastal targets and aircraft carrier groups over vast distances. This system embodies the concept of the perimeter system in its underwater variant. Even if command centers are destroyed, the torpedo can independently reach its target. Length about 24 meters. Diameter approximately 1.6 meters. Speed up to 100 km per hour underwater, nearly 4 to 5 times faster than the fastest American submarine of the Seawolf class, capable of around 33 km per hour. Diving depth up to 1000 meters, allowing the torpedo to evade most anti-submarine defense systems. Autonomous operation time several days, enough to cover several thousand kilometers to the target. Nuclear warhead, approximately 100 megatons, which is 6,667 times more powerful than the bomb drop on Hiroshima.
Not bad, but they could have made it even more powerful.
After launch from a submarine, Poseidon operates completely autonomously. It uses built-in navigation systems, depth and seabed sensors, and corrections from external navigation data to avoid obstacles and accurately reach its target. Human involvement occurs only at the launch stage. The torpedoes are designed to be launched from special strategic submarines currently in service with Russia. Each submarine can carry several torpedoes in standby mode. A detonation near the coast with a yield of 100 megatons can generate a giant 90-meter tsunami, sweeping away coastal cities and infrastructure. The radius of destruction on land is enormous: complete destruction of buildings, severe radioactive contamination, and devastating effects on ecosystems for decades. Even a single torpedo launch can destroy ports, factories, and coastal cities, while the shockwave and underwater currents cause additional damage tens of kilometers inland. The strategy assumes that the torpedoes are pre-deployed in submarines or at specific depths, ready for launch in case of a threat, effectively turning the system into an underwater dead hand. The Loon-class Ekranoplan. One of the most unusual vehicles of the Cold War and arguably of any era is the Loon Ekranoplan. It measures 73 meters in length with a wingspan of 43 meters, making this giant barely fit on a standard American football field. With its wings and jet engines, it looks like some kind of Soviet flying machine, but it is actually a hybrid of a ship and an airplane. It did not take off into the sky or sail the seas. Instead, it used what is called the ground effect. When it flew close to the water, air pressure built up between its wings and the surface below, creating an air cushion that allowed it to hover just a few meters above the water. With 8 turbojet engines at the front, this giant could reach speeds of up to 547 km per hour. Additionally, thanks to its size, it could carry over 110 tons, combining the capacity of a ship with the speed of an airplane. And see those 6 paired cylinders along the top? Those were rocket launchers. With all the speed and firepower, the Ekranoplan was intended to destroy planes and aircraft carriers in Soviet waters. The one prototype entered service in 1987, but when the Soviet regime collapsed 4 years later, this hybrid was left to gather dust.
At least if Godzilla comes, I know which vehicle to use against it.
EKIP project. So it's time to admit it. Conspiracy theorists were right. UFOs do exist. But they didn't come from space. They came from Soviet Russia. Before you is EKIP, an aircraft that looks like it was made on Mars and was conceived in 1978. This Russian flying saucer doesn't resemble other planes of its time, or even of ours. Its dome-shaped design was inspired by craft without a conventional fuselage, like stealth planes or reconnaissance aircraft.
Russians are born with the built-in genetic memory. Blueprints? We don't need them. But no matter what we build, it always turns into AK-47.
Thanks to its jet engines, the craft had an air cushion to take off and landing just like an Ekranoplan. This meant that EKIP could take off from land and water. The design was alien, but the Soviet military wanted an all-terrain aircraft, no matter how strange it looked. During development, engineers calculated that this aerodynamic craft would consume 14 grams of fuel per passenger per kilometer. Conventional planes at the time consumed 45 grams per passenger kilometer, which opened up huge possibilities. Larger models like the LZ could carry 400 passengers, and others were planned to even accommodate cars. But like many other crazy Soviet machines, EKIP made its decline with the collapse of the USSR. The program was halted and unfortunately never launched. But if it had, imagine what airports would have looked like.
I'm totally fine with the UFO economy class.
Bartini VVA-14. Many of the experimental Soviet machines look like they were taken straight out of sci-fi movies, but the Bartini VVA-14 could have served as inspiration itself. It resembles the Millennium Falcon from Star Wars, yet it was created in 1972, nearly 5 years before the franchise appeared.
Something tell me comrade George Lucas is not telling us everything.
The abbreviation VVA stands for Vertical Takeoff Amphibian, and it was an experimental Soviet aircraft. As the name suggests, it could take off from the water and climb to an altitude of up to 10 kilometers. But it also flew just a few meters above the water using the same ground effect, achieved thanks to two floats attached to the fuselage. Two engines at the front created an air cushion, directing exhaust into narrow channels between the fuselage and the floats, allowing the plane to hover above the water. This capability was intended to destroy American Polaris submarines, which troubled the Soviet Union during the Cold War. The VVA-14 was supposed to have 12 lift engines for vertical takeoff, but they were never installed. After the death of its creator in 1974, the project was halted. Two prototypes were decommissioned in 1987, but its legacy clearly lives on in Star Wars. Yuri, are you with us?
I watched Star Wars for the first time when I was a boy. It was the happiest day of my life.
Tsar tank. This next vehicle isn't Soviet, but you can immediately tell it was made in Russia. During the height of World War I, Russian engineers built a tank as tall as a 3-story building with guns capable of destroying an entire forest. The wheels were 9 meters in diameter, and the main body stretched 18 meters, connecting to the rear wheel. Two turrets with guns and machine guns were bolted on top and under the gun mounts, and in addition extra machine guns were installed in armored capsules on the sides to protect against infantry. It was definitely the king of all tanks, and it's no wonder it was named the Tsar tank. But why create such a giant madness? At the time, Russia was looking for a way to break through the trench systems on the Eastern Front. Instead of tanks with traditional tracks, they decided to try spoked wheels. But this 60-ton steel giant was doomed to never fight. Due to poor engineering, the small rear wheel bore too much of the tank's weight and got stuck in soft ground and ditches. During testing, it got completely stuck in a field and could not be dug out. The Tsar tank rusted there throughout the war and for several years after, and it was finally scrapped only in 1923. What a waste of giant wheels! And in the next episode, we will talk about…
Wait, do you hear that? Wait, it's really happening again. God damn it, I can't believe this shit. Fucking aliens!